Alrighty, what is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to the channel for another weekly update. Hope everybody's having a lovely weekend. And with that being said, let's get into the TA. Alright, so we're going to start here on SPY. We're going to go over the weekly charts first, and then we'll move down to the daily charts and discuss what we got going on this week and what we are looking for and what we're watching out for. All right, so first thing I want to point out is we do have a shooting star candlestick over here on SPY. We have the same over here on QQQ. Something else I want to point out is that your weekly RSI is still in overbought territory, which means we can get a deeper correction here. I also will point out SPY has barely fallen in comparison to QQQ, so we are going to come over here and focus on QQQ in today's video. We do have a shooting star candlestick over here on QQQ with increasing volume that validates that candlestick. And you actually do have this bearish divergence still on the weekly RSI, which again is something that could support a deeper pullback. Now, let's just go back over the charts and let's point out the last few times you did end up seeing this weekly shooting star candlestick. You had one right here. You had a similar candlestick formation over there. You had one here at the top. You had one right here, and then if you come all the way up here, nope, that was a doji shooting, or not doji shooting star, a doji candlestick right there, or gravestone doji, and then you had, there it is, all right, and one more right there. What do all of these have in common? Over the following weeks, you did go lower, so that is something I want to point out. This time can be different, but is it likely that it's going to be different when you've had the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 end up bringing prices lower? It's not likely that this time is going to be different. So we could get a rather significant pullback, and we'll be talking about the levels that we'll be watching further on in the video. All right, come on over here to SPY. Let's see if we have a similar look over here. All right, so you got the shooting star over there. Where did we last see these pop up on the weekly chart? You had one go on right here, and then you had, I believe we have one, we have one similar looking candlestick over here. And you have these two right here. And then you also have one right here at the top. So this is going back a year and, what is it, 7 months? Yeah, a year and 8 months now. And again, over here in SPY, just like on QQ, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You actually had one right there at the top as well. All right, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got these. I wouldn't really call them shooting star. I would call those long-legged dojis. Just actually, that's probably what I would call that one too. But either way, 5 out of 5 or 6 out of 6, whichever way you want to look at this, have brought lower prices. So, you know, we have confluence there going on SPY's weekly chart, just like we do over here on QQ. The next thing I'm going to bring up is aapl. Since aapl is the big boy, we're just going to end up hiding drawings right there, and let's see what we got right here. All right, we do have this gravestone doji candlestick, and now we're going to turn back on drawings, and I want to point out the previous times over the last 2 years that you have had this candlestick formation pop up on the weekly time frame. So obviously we got that one right there. You had one right here. You had one, where was another? You had one right there. You had, there's a shooting star right there. Similar candlestick, same psychology here, but we will just look at the gravestone dojis. You had one right there. You had one right there. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 5 times have brought prices lower. Now, this is the only occurrence right here that did not bring prices extremely lower. We were still in the middle of this aggressive uptrend, and we are still in an aggressive uptrend, but I am also going to point out that you do have this bearish divergence, just like on QQ. You have this bearish divergence on the weekly RSI as well. The last time we did end up seeing this bearish divergence as well as the weekly RSI in oversold or overbought territory up here with the gravestone doji, which honestly, this is more of a shooting star now that I'm looking at it. But either way, same psychology, was over here. And what did you get? You had a, there you go. All right, over the following 4 weeks, you had an 8.5% sell-off. All right, which I actually did that wrong, so we could start right here. Over the following 4 weeks, all right, you had a total of a 12.5% sell. If you closed out that week, though, just about at a 10% sell. Is this time going to be different? I don't know. We are going to have to see how that goes. That's why we do these daily updates, and then we come back and we look at the broader time frames over here on the weekly time frame. every single Saturday. So stay tuned for that, and subscribe if you are new here. Join our big growing community. It will only get larger over the following years, and you might as well be a part of that. And let's actually go ahead and there we go. Move all those. All right, come back over to SPY. All right, before we go any further, we have confluence among SPY, QQQ, and Apple now. All right, on the weekly charts that suggest, we probably are going to be going lower. Now, I'm going to point out my two likely scenarios on QQ and SPY do both involve us going lower. I don't see the logic in stopping right here. I think you're at least going to come down and test 450. I'm going to point out you have not fallen much on SPY in comparison to QQ, which I still think is odd, which means, hey, maybe we do see this deeper pullback over here on QQQ. Considering Apple formed that candlestick, and that will be leading the way. We do have big tech earnings this week. We have Microsoft on Tuesday, as well as Google, so GOOG, as well as GOOGL, and then msft. And then on Wednesday, we have FOMC, and then after the bell on Wednesday, we have Meta earnings. And if we come over here to Meta, you guys can see this thing has gone on an absolute tear, and it has really not looked back. It has not had a single, literally a single solid pullback. You just haven't. And you come over here to Apple, and it looks pretty similar, except Apple did get these significant pullbacks, whereas Meta just did not. All right, Meta, you see over here, it did fall quite a bit, but in comparison to this, it's not much of a pullback there you got over here on Meta. So I am open to a big, fat, nasty gap down over here on Meta, but we're going to really have to see how things go. We had Netflix come over here, and Netflix had a 8% down day, and then we had Tesla over here, and Tesla had a 10% down day, which I'm going to point out. Tesla has now fallen $45 from its high. We come over here to the 4-hour time frame. We're going to put on, we have extended hours on. I'm going to point out you do have this bullish divergence here on your RSI. If you do fall any further, though, that is going to be, shattered. You are not going to see that there, but I am going to point out the last time you got this opportunity was down here. Well, I'm not going to call it an opportunity, but the last time we had this condition, you were down here, and we didn't see this RSI get this low since all the way back down here when you ended up forming this triple bullish divergence. And from the start of that, you fell from just about there. You fell about $10 lower before you carved out the triple bullish divergence, and then you had a very significant pop, as we can see. So do I think you're going to come back up here and test the highs? I'm not saying you are. I am going to say I think you get at least a dead cat bounce along the way, and I think it's probably going to it's going to be a decent sized one. But I do want to point out over here on Tesla that you did break this low. What does this effectively do? It puts you in the territory to get that trend change. Now, I will point out, last time you did end up, you probably psyched out a lot of people over here, including myself. I thought you were going to end up coming back and filling this gap. And that could be something similar to what we have playing out right now. Maybe Tesla is just going to pull another trick, and then maybe you're back off to the races. I have no idea. But what I will point out is that you have this condition here. I think it's more likely than not that you get this bounce before coming all the way down here and filling this 235 gap, because that is going to be right around your next support as well, which is going to be around 240 right here. All right. As of right now, you have this support right here we can pull up, and that is right where you ended up bouncing. That is where all these candlesticks ended up closing at right here, and then you bounced over here and held that. So that is where you ended up holding up the other day. If you do see QQQ still sell off, which I do think is likely, I think you can go a little lower here, and maybe we will be looking at over here at 254, and then after that you will have your next support over here at 247. But again, the strong support is all the way down here at 240, and I don't personally think that's going to happen without a bounce here on Mr. Tesla. So we're going to see how that goes. I just want to put that on your radar. Coming back over to the indices, now we can go over the daily time frames. So you do have this heavy selling volume. I'm not going to call it the heaviest of selling volume, but you did have these two red days here. Well, you had a flat day on Thursday, but not Thursday, Friday. Thursday was a red day, but you did have increased volume on both these days, which my opinion, is telling us, hey, sellers are hopping on it. And then you come over to NASDAQ and you had this big fat nasty 2.3% down candlestick right here in this down day. That was off heavy sell volume. So I do think it's very likely that you end up coming lower. And I'm going to put on a fib here. And we are going to point out some areas of confluence that we could find on the charts here on SPY and QQQ. Come over here. Why are we using that? Because that is the last low, and then that is the last high. I told you guys before we hit this, wherever we end up stalling out, I'm going to put this Fibonacci retracement on, and we're going to see where we could potentially be falling down. We finally do have that high here, which I'm just going to point out over here on NASDAQ that you did end up stalling out literally right here at our supply zone. Did you come up and hit the supply zone? Oh, that is the wrong one. I'm completely wrong one. That is the one you blew past. That is around 380. I remember that one. All right. Come over here and let's just drag that all the way over there. I'm going to point out you missed it by $1. All right, so sellers did end up hopping on this thing a little bit early there, but that is to be expected because that was your next major resistance here. That is where sellers shoved you down, gave you a lower low, and then they came back, and this is where they held for that lower high. That's where they said, buyers, get back down there. We're going in a downtrend. That is what ended up taking place. That is why I was looking for sellers to step in over here. I was pointing out that this zone right here is a weak zone. We actually, I don't even think we used the zone when we were talking about it. I think we just ended up using this as a resistance, just a little resistance level here. And I pointed out, hey, all right, structure has already been filled. It was here. All right, you came down and you slammed underneath it. All right, so it was structure that was not left open on the chart. This is structure that was left open on the chart. So I did expect it to turn into a supply zone where sell orders would be because, again, it's not filled. So there is that. But now let's go over where we are looking for NASDAQ over here to bounce, as well as the S&P 500, which on this channel, we look at the ETFs. We can look at the bigger boys, but I know more people are going to end up trading SPY and QQ. So that is what we're going to cover on the chart. And me, myself, I personally do trade these two, and I don't trade SPX or NDX. So we are going to be focusing on these. So I'm going to point out where you ended up stalling out on these declines here on the last two occurrences, which was right here at the 20 MA. And then you come over here and you also you stalled out on this decline / retracement right at the 20 MA. What do we have over here in SPY? We have the same exact thing going on. Where'd you stall out? It was right here at the 20 DMA. And then what happened? You came up for the double top. You came back down. This was the level we were watching. I remember we were watching this gap fill right here, and we had confluence with that in the 20 MA, and that is exactly where price ended up bouncing up off of. And I'm pretty sure we can actually also throw a Fibonacci retracement. I think that was one of them. Let's see about that. Yeah, right there on the 0.5. That is where you ended up holding up. And why do we use these fibs, guys? Because this is going to be the indicator that the most, at least how I see it, it is the indicator that the most amount of traders are going to be using, most amount of investors are going to be using, and for that reason, it is going to be the most respected indicator. So the more eyes are on something, the more self-fulfilling prophecies that thing is going to give us. And that is exactly what I think we're going to end up getting on here. I'm not saying you don't go lower, but I think we do get a dead cat bounce before we get any significant decline, or we just come back up and continue this uptrend. I will point out and remind everyone that we are in an aggressive uptrend here, and we are very close to all-time highs. And if you were to come back down, I can't imagine it being a massive decline. We can come back down here and visit 430, but I'm just going to say right now, I don't think we're going to see this crash anytime soon that a lot of people still think is going to happen. That's going to bring you all the way down to lows. Do you see how far of a decline you must get? You have to put yourself in a new bear market just to get down to the lows, which is like, you know, how people look at it. It's the 20% from the lows. Oh, you're in a new bull market. 20% from the highs, you're in a new bear market. I don't think it works like that. But I will definitely point out what I pointed out in a previous video last week, which is if we do come up here to all-time highs, that is going to cancel out that bear thesis. That is going to suggest, yes, we are definitely in a new bull market. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. All right. If any bear is still bearish up here, Just look back on the charts. We could put the weekly chart up right here, and we'll point out that, hey, all right, .com bubble, you could not come up and get above these highs. Over here, oh 08, all right, you could not get up above these highs. What happens when you did get above the highs? You flipped them as support and you kept running up into them. Let's come over here. What happened at these highs? You got over. I mean, like, I'm going to be honest, all right? This was a rather, the .com bubble is the thing, all right? This was a very sharp decline that occurred over here on NASDAQ. But regardless, all right, let's look at this 08 one. You got back above it. You were in your new bull market, and you went on for a very long time in that bull market. For the next 5 years, you saw this thing return 100%. Do I think you're going to run back up and have 100% return from up here? No, that would bring S&P to, 800, 800 something bucks. I don't think that's going to happen. All right. Yes, I do think something big is going to happen down the line. But since this is a weekly update, let's talk about it, right? Why are they going to end the cycle now? Why are they going to do it? If they can, they can really just keep going with this thing, why are they not going to keep going with this thing? If things aren't breaking yet, what reason do they have to, make everything, all panicky, everyone all panicky? And yeah, what reason does the Fed want to crash? They don't want to crash right now. If inflation is coming back down, that does mean demand has been slowing. No, we're not in a deflationary environment, but that's not what inflation needs to go down. Inflation just means if you have declining inflation month over month, year over year, prices aren't going to be coming down. You just don't have the acceleration of that trend anymore. And that is what they were looking for. That is why they were reaching for this 2% goal. Guys, I think we just got down to like 3% on the last CPI report. That's 1% away from their goal. That is why the market is rallying absolutely massively. They have seen, the market participants have seen that, holy cow, this thing has, came back. The whole reason we sell off the whole year, last 2022, last year, it's all coming to an end. That whole panicky season we were in is like, it's being thrown out the window because, no, we don't have this 5 to 10% inflation anymore. If inflation does pick back up, yes, I do suspect market participants are probably going to go in that panicky state again and sell off the market. But until that happens, we have no reason to sit here front running anything. We just don't. All right. Come back over to the daily time frame. Like I pointed out over here with the 20 MA. All right, I do think we probably are going to get something very similar. We're probably going to come just like we came and dipped underneath here. All right, you dipped underneath it a little bit over here, but we'll just reference over here. What if we end up seeing a very big fat candlestick go from, holds up the body of the candlestick is somewhere right over here on the breakout point, 373 to 370 over here. And then what if we have a wick that comes down, sweeps this gap, 368.63? That would end up holding up on this 20 DMA. And then you do also end up seeing, buyers step in on the breakout level. And so that's why I think my personal opinion is that we do that with a wick. I'm not sure how that actually does go down, but that is a likely scenario in my personal opinion. But the scenarios that I really see for NASDAQ here are right here. All right, you come down to that gap fill, and you very likely are going to come back up and either put in a lower high off the dead cat bounce, or you're going to come up here and double top in the supply zone again, or you come up here and make a higher high, and then you continue your track to all-time highs. I don't know. But as I said during the week, SPY did end up surpassing. It had a daily close over the 0.786 Fibonacci retracement from all-time highs to the October low. And what that signifies to me is that sellers, all right, they let you go. They let you go, which was right here. Look, you had this big fat close over there. All right, then you got rejected very close to that supply zone. Your high of day was 456. What we were watching is 457. Well, it was actually 456.75, as you can see right there. So we got extremely close to that. So it made perfect sense that sellers were going to come in here. But the fact that you came above that and got a close above that just shows me that sellers aren't even very convinced in this thing anymore. All right. That's what it means to me. I'm not saying you can't go a little above it and then, get pushed down. Like on the weekly time frame, let's actually just put that back on the chart. All right. Come over to the weekly time frame. Look at that. All right. You actually did end up closing right at it. So maybe that's something to talk about it. But I still say, Why didn't the sellers just shove you right back down? That's what I'm wondering. All right. Buyers were stronger on that day than sellers. And that's like their very important spot to be watching, because if it's going to be a retracement, it's very likely going to stall it somewhere in the golden pocket. It's going to be the 0.618 to the 0.786. And that didn't happen. All right. So over here on SPY, likely scenarios. All right. Either you do end up, let's come over to the daily time frame. Either you do end up coming down here to 450 and you get a, likely a dead cat, because, SPY has not fallen much. So I don't know what would be happening. Maybe we would end up double topping, or you'd get a lower high here, or you get this deeper pullback here, which I think is likely, but I don't know. I don't know how it all makes sense. I'm just pointing out what I see on the charts, and you end up coming down here, filling the gap, or tapping this breakout level, which if you tap the breakout level of 444, then I do have to assume you're probably going to go a little lower. Maybe it happens with that wick, and you come down here and fill that gap. That is what I would very much so like to see for a nice and healthy uptrend to resume. You come over here to QQQ, same thing. All right. Now I point out that another scenario is that we just come down here to 373, and then we bounce off of that. I don't know. All right. But I will point out the 0.618 Fibonacci does end up aligning with, which I actually did that wrong. Let me point that out. All right. I was going to say something looked wrong there. All right. 0.786 does align perfectly with the gap fill here. And then you have the 0.618 aligning perfectly with the breakup point. So just areas of confluence. You'll have the golden pocket here between here and the gap fill. So the breakout level here to the gap fill, which is 373 to 368.63. You have that. You'll have the 20 DMA down there. And on top of that, you will have this golden pocket. So, yeah, 3 levels of confluence there. These are my 2 likely scenarios on QQQ, 2 likely scenarios on SPY going into this week, something like that. All right, either you do end up holding up at 450, or you come down here and you get in the golden pocket, which would bring you to the 20 MA, fill the gap, and breakout level. And that would be a best case scenario for a healthy uptrend to resume. And honestly, with what we looked at on the weekly chart, I think that is likely. Do I know how that happens? No. All right, because you come over here to NQ, the NASDAQ futures, and this thing has had such a nasty fall already. And I'm just going to point out, you have your 4-hour RSI already pretty much in oversold territory. If you do come down into, what I just pointed out over here on QQ, if you have this deeper pullback, you are going to, and if SPY comes back and has that deeper pullback, then you are going to end up seeing this thing either come down into deep oversold territory, which could give you a pretty sick, nasty bounce like it did over here. All right. Or you got one going on right here and you started, let's just point out. All right. There you go. That was a pretty sick, nasty bounce. Or it would end up putting in a bullish divergence. So let's see when you last put in your bullish divergence. All right. I don't know when the last time was, but it would be something like over here. Let's just point this out. All right. You come into deeply oversold territory. You do get your decent sized bounce there. You get a 1% move to the upside, almost 1.5%. And then you carved out a triple bullish divergence and you fall another 2.3%. So we're going to have to see how all of this plays out. But these are the scenarios that I am looking for. And we do have, like I said, FOMC on Wednesday. We have tech earnings on Tuesday. And then we have Meta over on Wednesday, which is another big tech earning. So these will be the market movers of the week. If we fall massively into these things, I can't imagine they really just tank you. If we do have a red Monday and a red Tuesday, then I imagine these catalysts are going to end up bringing you up. If you end up seeing that bounce from 450 on SPY and then going into Tuesday, you have that bounce, then, be wary of a, gap down off of the tech earnings, or on Wednesday's FOMC meeting, we have maybe a red day coming there. Ultimately, guys, we're just going to have to see what happens, but this is what I'm watching for on the charts. And last thing I will point out is that VIX over here did end up having a bullish Harami candlestick formation over here on the weekly time frame. Formed a doji, bullish Harami. That is a bullish reversal candlestick formation. You need the confirmation, which actually I just realized I failed to mention over here on SPY, let's just get rid of these drawings here. I want to point out, you had this bullish engulfing candlestick, and this week confirmed that bullish engulfing candlestick. So even if we come down, as long as you don't come underneath the low of this, which was 437.59, which you also could just use the open. That's what I'm pretty sure candlesticks respect, which was 438.18. As long as you don't have a close underneath 438.18 on the weekly time frame, guys, we could fall all the way down here and we could still resume this uptrend. And, you know, this thing is still confirmed. So that would be a close, a weekly close underneath here. That would confirm that this thing is invalidated and it's off the table. But just like this one confirmed this one over here, you know, that's what today, you know, this week's candlestick did. All right, guys, with that being said, I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.